Pearl is directed by Ty West and is the prequel movie to a film that came out earlier this year called X. Pearl reveals the development of the character of Pearl, and it's one of the most unsettling movies I've seen all year. Trapped on her family's isolated farm, Pearl must tend to her ailing father under the bitter and overbearing watch of her devout mother. Lusting for a glamorous life like she's seen in the movies, Pearl finds her ambitions, temptations, and repressions all colliding in this origin story of X's iconic villain. If I've got to summarize my viewpoint on this movie in a sentence, I would say that it's one of the most unsettling films of the entire year that operates under the guise of slasher horror, but it finds clever ways to really resonate with wider audiences by touching on themes and ideas that might hit a little too close to home. So let me start off with what I really enjoyed about Pearl. I thought Pearl was really cleverly written. This is one of the deepest films that I've seen come out of the horror genre, I think, ever. It's very rare where I watch a movie like this, period, where there's so many different ideas and themes and just concepts that are explored that seem very relatable to a lot of people's lives, hence a general audience. Concepts like wanting to be loved and accepted, trying to get out of the circumstances you're in, the craziness that comes with things like pandemics and illnesses, caring for your loved ones, trying to balance caring for your loved ones and also living your own life and pursuing your own dreams. Do you maybe leave your loved ones behind in order to go do what you want? It's a question that's explored here in quite sufficient depth, and at its very core, Pearl is a movie about a girl who just wants to be loved and is just the circumstances around her are driving her to madness. A person can only handle so much, and within Pearl trying to handle all these different ideas and themes, it really weighs on her and you can feel it gradually take its toll to the point where things just go haywire. It was just really captivating to see Pearl come to grips with all these different circumstances and how she adapts to them. It's fascinating, it's really unsettling, and the movie really surprised me in a lot of ways. And within that, I thought this movie was extremely captivating for most of its runtime. There are so many intense moments throughout this film. There's probably at least a dozen where you're going to be on the edge of your seat, gripping your arm handles really, really hard, and your heart's going to be racing because you just have no clue what's going to be happening next. But at the same time, you can't really take your eyes off the screen because you want to know how it's going to go down. This can come from the scares, it can come from the suspense that comes with it, it can come from even the grossness of the slasher elements that you'll see within this movie, because there are quite a few. They're quite jarring and they're quite nasty. I can be a little squeamish sometimes when it comes to those things. There's a certain line and threshold that I don't like to cross. This movie definitely goes over that, so for those of you who are squeamish, be warned. But even with a lot of the camera work that this movie uses on these characters, it really can produce these captivating moments almost out of thin air. There is a sequence in this film where a character does give a ton of monologue, and it's a really long sequence, and the way that the camera just pans on her face is fascinating, and it really sold the moment for me. Like, I was actually a lot more scared of what they were saying rather than just the image of them themselves. It was really interesting. And even when they're trying to capture imagery like rotting and decaying body parts, flesh, food, whatever, this movie really makes that experience captivating as well and really makes you kind of squeamish. And what's even more interesting within this captivation is there's a lot of shocking moments that can even make you laugh at some points. With as dark as this movie is, it finds a way to insert a little bit of comedy into it that you can't really help but laugh at. Some of the things just get so outrageous that you're kind of, you just can't help but get a chuckle out of yourself. It's so funny. I'm even laughing thinking about it now. The movie, it does a great job of having your heart pumping. It does a great job of catching you on your toes, and it does a great job of just producing a ton of shock value. And within a lot of that shock value, I gotta give this movie props for being really horrifying and really bold in doing so. Of course, within a slasher flick, you've got plenty of scenes in this movie where there's a ton of bloody shock value, body parts are flying, kills are being had, people are dying. That stuff's really gross, and it's going to satisfy a lot of you slasher fans out there, no doubt about it. But this movie approaches horror in ways that I quite haven't seen before by making everything within it so relatable, and by making horror relatable, you can strike fear into the hearts of your audiences because a lot of the stuff could actually happen and probably has. Seeing Pearl drift into madness slowly over time is essentially the crux of this movie, and it executes upon that so well and really makes for most of the horrifying experience that you see. Just that steady cadence that you get from start to finish, it's just mind-blowing, and it really freaked me out. Just when you think the movie's not going to go any further than what it does with Pearl, it continues to subvert your expectations, push those boundaries, and scare you even more. Just when you think a human couldn't be capable of more, they prove you wrong, and it's really, it's horrifying. It's disgusting. It goes to places even your wildest imagination can't go to. And I won't harp on this too much more because I've already talked about the relatable themes of this movie, but there are plenty of them in this case, which does, I think, enhance the experience for me personally. When I can draw narratives, perspectives, and ideas from the films that I watch to help me digest my own life, I always enjoy that bit of information. I know other people feel the same way. You might not. That's okay. But by making the themes in this movie a lot more relatable, I would argue it makes it a lot more horrifying and scary. Even if they're not relatable, if they're at least familiar, that kind of checks off that box as well. Now, what did I not enjoy so much about Pearl? I think that the pacing of the movie was so awful that it really knocked down the movie a couple pegs for me. The middle act, I think, is where the movie is strongest. The pacing has no problems there. Stuff is hitting the wall left and right, and it's pretty terrifying. However, the first act, I think, is a little slow, and the third act comes to a screeching halt to the point where the last 20 minutes feels like it takes an hour. Without giving away too many spoilers, there is a soliloquy with a particular character that literally goes on, I think I was reading the other day, for about 9 minutes long. That really elongates that third act and makes it really feel stretched out. It's shocking, it's horrifying, and it really, you can't help but watch the entire thing, but after a while, you're kind of like, all right, I want to move on to something else. It's like the person that you meet that does nothing but dominate a conversation. You can't get a word in edgewise, and they can just talk for 20 minutes on end without stopping. It's like you wonder how they run out of breath. It's one of those situations, and although it is impressive by the actor who does this soliloquy, I think it really does the ending of the movie a disservice. Although I will say, very impressive feat to pull off. And I would say that the pacing of that third act was just so awful for me personally that, like I said, it really just dragged down the movie by at least a couple points for me. So friends, with that in mind, I'm gonna have to give this movie a 7 out of 10. If you're a horror slasher fan, definitely go see this movie. If you're a wider audience that wants to try something different and take a risk, this also might be for you. Friends, thank you so much for watching another movie review. If you like this video, I'd be honored if you consider clicking the like button, or click these end cards up above, or the links down in the description below for your viewing pleasure, or subscribe if you really enjoyed it. Once again, I'm Bryce. Enjoy the movie, and until next time, have a great day.